All right, so today we're diving into the world of import-export, specifically in tech.
Always a fascinating topic.
It really is. I mean,
Sure.
ever wonder how that laptop gets from, like, a factory who knows where to your doorstep?
Right. It's a global undertaking for sure.
It's not magic, though. There's a whole career dedicated to making that happen.
There is. And it's more than just logistics. It's understanding regulations, cultural nuances.
It's like a global puzzle, but with computers.
Exactly.
So we're talking about import-export managers, and let me tell you, it's way more interesting than it sounds. This RoleCatcher guide you sent is packed with info.
It really breaks it down.
Let's unpack it together. First things first, what does an import-export manager actually do?
Well, forget that stereotypical, boring desk job image.
Okay, good.
We're talking international deals, cutting-edge tech, maybe even some travel perks.
Okay, that's what I like to hear. But what does that actually look like day to day?
So the guide breaks it down into three main stages. You start as a coordinator. You're the organization guru, making sure everything is running smoothly.
So you're like the air traffic control, but for shipments instead of planes.
Exactly. You're making sure everything's moving on schedule and it's all in the right place at the right time.
Got it. So what's next?
Then you climb the ladder to supervisor, and this is where you're not just managing processes, but people too.
Okay, more responsibility.
You're mentoring, you're delegating, you're basically making sure your team is firing on all cylinders.
Okay, so there's definitely room for growth here. I
Mm.
like it. What about reaching the peak, though?
That's where you become the import-export manager. You're calling the shots, leading the team, and of course, that salary bump doesn't hurt either.
Music to my ears. But let's be honest. This sounds pretty complex. What are some must-have skills for someone looking to break into this field?
You'd be surprised. Sure, tech know-how is important, but this guide really emphasizes some skills you might not expect.
Like what?
Like, ever think cultural psychology could be your secret weapon in international trade?
Psychology. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, think about it. You're closing a deal with a company in, say, Japan. Their business etiquette, their communication style, even their decision-making process.
I'm different.
Exactly. And understanding those nuances can really make or break the deal.
Wow, I never thought about it like that. So it's not just about understanding the tech, it's about understanding people.
Absolutely.
Fascinating.
The guide actually gives this great example. Knowing how a Japanese company makes decisions versus, say, a German one, that's the kind of cultural insight that really sets you apart.
That's a really good point. But let's be real, every job has its downsides, right?
Mhm.
So what are some of the challenges in this field?
Yeah, the guide definitely doesn't sugarcoat it.
Okay.
Picture this. A critical shipment gets stuck in customs because of some obscure regulation you've never even heard of.
Oh, no.
Guess whose problem that becomes?
Oof, yeah, that sounds stressful. And I'm betting that happens more often than we realize.
Exactly. Or imagine a key supplier suddenly gets hit with sanctions. You need to pivot quickly, find a new source, all while keeping your own supply chain running smoothly. No pressure, right?
Definitely not for the faint of heart. But this is where technology comes in, right, to help manage all of this.
You got it. Remember that conversation we had about automation?
Yeah.
This field is embracing it big time. We're talking software for tracking shipments, ensuring compliance,
Wow.
even predicting market trends.
So instead of drowning in paperwork,
Yeah.
you're using tech to stay ahead of the game.
Exactly.
I like it.
Imagine having a program that alerts you about potential regulatory changes in a specific country
Oh, wow.
before they even happen. That's the power of AI and automation in this field.
It's like having a crystal ball, but for global trade.
Okay, you've sold me on the excitement factor, but let's talk career path for a sec.
Okay.
Is this a field with legs? Asking for a friend who might have a LinkedIn profile they need to update.
Well, tell your friend they're in luck. The guide highlights a really positive job outlook, especially as globalization keeps expanding.
That's good to hear. And it's not just about climbing the corporate ladder. There are tons of ways to specialize.
So more like a jungle gym than a ladder.
Exactly.
I like it. Tell me more about these specializations.
Well, you could become a global trade compliance manager, for example.
Okay.
That's the person that everyone goes to for navigating the legal ins and outs of international trade.
Okay, so you're basically a trade lawyer.
Kind of. It's intense, but essential. You make sure your company doesn't, accidentally spark an international incident with an illegal shipment or something.
Right, right. So high-stakes puzzle solving with huge financial implications.
Exactly.
High stakes, high reward. I like it. What other paths are there?
The guide also mentions moving into international sales.
Oh,
So you could leverage your knowledge of global markets to, close those million-dollar deals we were talking about.
all right. You've officially convinced me to dust off my resume.
Right.
But let's say, hypothetically, I'm starting from scratch here, any tips for breaking into this world?
Sure. The guide really stresses the importance of internships.
Okay.
Real-world experience trumps everything, so get your foot in the door early, even if it's just like grabbing coffee and making copies.
It's about proving yourself right.
Exactly.
Okay, internships, got it. What else?
Network, network, network. Like, your career depends on it, because
Yeah.
it kind of does. Trade shows, industry events, even LinkedIn.
Right?
It's not just about what you know, but who you know in this field.
Networking. Honestly, it feels a bit intimidating, though.
It can be, sure, but it's also an opportunity to, learn from the best.
Too.
Imagine grabbing coffee with a seasoned import-export manager.
Right.
They could share insider tips, war stories from the trenches, maybe even give you a heads up about job openings that never see the light of day.
That's a good point. Okay, you've convinced me. Networking it is. Any other nuggets of wisdom from the guide? Okay, so we've got internships for, hands-on experience, networking to build those connections. What else should our listeners be thinking about?
This one might sound obvious, but the guide really hammers it home. Never stop learning.
Right.
Regulations change, new technologies emerge, the global landscape shifts constantly. You gotta stay curious.
Oh, for sure. It's like they say, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah.
Especially in a fast-paced field like this.
Exactly. And honestly, that's what makes it so exciting. You could be, brushing up on the latest AI software one day, then diving into the cultural intricacies of a new market the next.
It's never boring.
Never boring.
Okay, you've really painted a great picture here.
Yeah.
It's not just about, moving boxes around the world. It's about understanding the people, the cultures,
The whole landscape?
the ever-changing landscape of global trade, which actually brings us back to something we touched on earlier, those potential cultural clashes.
Oh, yeah.
The guide mentioned those. Imagine this, you're this close to closing a major deal,
Huge deal.
millions of dollars on the line,
The contracts are printed, champagne's on ice.
and then, bam, a cultural misunderstanding pops up out of nowhere and just threatens to derail the whole thing. So for our listeners out there, what could go wrong in a situation like that? How would you navigate that minefield?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It really is. The world of import-export, as we've seen.
It's full of surprises.
It's full of these fascinating complexities. It takes a really unique blend of, skills, knowledge, adaptability
Absolute.
to really thrive in this field.
Yeah.
So to our listeners out there, best of luck navigating the global marketplace. We know you've got this.
Absolutely. And hey, when those million-dollar deals start rolling in,
Dinner's on you.
be yo.
All right. Until next time, folks.